Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming back to Crystal Clear Moments. I am Crystal Blackwell. I am the podcast facilitator, host. I am going to be walking you through our conversation today. I'm so excited to have this guest here. Before we start, I just want to remind you to download my podcast, like it, and put some comments on it so I can hear what you guys say and what you feel about my podcast. Okay, so please do that. Please do that right away. Today's guest, before I introduce her, I'm just going to tell you that you ever met someone that you're like, are we related? Like some kind of weird way? I always believe, I know we're all into, science has told us that we're all connected. So I get the DNA stuff and I get all of that. But when I first met Jackie Johnson, I immediately felt like, okay, I know her. She's family. It's just something about her energy, her vibe. She kind of looks like my people, she's a very tall, elegant woman. I come from a family of very tall women. I'm like the short one, like my mom, but I'm good with it. So I always gravitate to tall women because that's what I'm around. My sister, my aunt, my dad's tall, so I'm like tall people. And she's very tall and very elegant and lean, beautiful face, beautiful skin. So when I met her, I was like, okay. But when I met your mom, I was like, okay, your mother is like an aunt to me. So it's really weird. And we really have no background. Like you're from a part of the country that I'm not. Yes. So you just never know. You guys better check your DNA. So I don't know. I don't know. We may need to check the DNA. But because of that, and because I have learned in my past, when God presents someone to me and we connect, I don't fight it. I lean into it and I embrace it. I embrace the friendship. I embrace the love. I embrace the person. I really feel like that for us. We met like 2 years ago at a diversity panel conversation. I think you were actually a panelist.
Yes, I was.
And then afterwards, we just chit-chatted and we kind of continued on the conversation. We have not shut up. And what I love about me and Jackie is that lately she's looked at me and I've looked at her and when you get the same thought. So that's when you know that you have the synergy. Like she looked at me like, okay, no, she didn't. And I'm like, okay, yes, she did. So that's when you know you crossed over, and I really appreciate that. And you're funny as hell. You're so funny.
Oh, thank you.
You are so funny. You crack me up. So before I go further into Crystal Clear Moments, talking about Jackie Johnson's life, tell you a little bit about her. First of all, I'm grateful. I just meet really interesting people, and she has a really great background. What I love about her is that she's rooted, grounded, solid in faith. Yes. Like that is her guiding light, and I love that because I connect with that. And it's nice to have people in your tribe that at the end of the day, their guiding light is their faith, and it's very solid. Family is a value of yours. Like you cannot not spend time with her and not see a picture of a godchild who is a niece or a nephew, and any new birth she celebrates. And I've been around you and your family, and you just see the love. And I love that value of yours. And that's something that, again, I think that we both connect with. Family is so important, and loving on family. And when you speak of your family, you smile. That means you like them, huh?
I like them.
You like them. That's a good thing because, sometimes you don't be liking family. So, right, that's a good thing. And then lastly, this is what we have in common is that you're a community-minded heart person. You have you have a heart of service.
Yes.
And it comes out in your career because you do diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging work. And you cannot play in that lane. Nope. Unless you have a heart of service. For sure. Because every day you're like in the battle, and it's different kind of battle, but every day you're there. So that's like your entire background. You're certified in it. You went to ASU, so her credentials are there. She knows what she's talking about. Was it sociology?
Social work.
Social work background. Mm-hmm. So understanding people and how society and social work matters, and all of that comes into play, how you show up and everything that you do. You've done a lot of different things in your background, but the one thing I find the most interesting about you, and I think I mentioned it to you, is your storytelling. And I wanted to talk about that too sometime, in our conversation as a storytelling, because people are paying me a lot of money to come and teach their leaders how to tell stories in a corporate setting, and we know storytelling is ancient. I mean, it's biblical parables.
Absolutely.
Jesus told stories to
Yes.
get it through our heads what he was trying to, minister and teach us. Moms told stories. African, leaders told stories, and
Yes.
tribals and Native American tribes. A lot of our indigenous brothers and sisters told stories about their
Absolutely.
ancestors. So this is not a new thing.
No.
But I think it's a gift that you have because you write poetry.
Yes.
So before we go into all your different talents, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the wonderful introduction. And my heart has always been attached to you too. I remember specifically when we met, and it has, like you said, it has been since that day we've been connected in a very positive way, and you so inspire me. I want you to know that.
Thank
so
you.
I am so excited to be here with you today.
Thank you. Thank you for taking my asking to be here and showing up, and you're ready and all. You look beautiful today. So thank you. So let's start off with this. I'm going to kind of go backwards and forward because I think this is really interesting, tying into your gift.
Okay.
And I know you have others, but what was your crystal clear moment that said, you know what, I know I'm a storyteller. This is something that I do well.
Oh, that is a great question. I don't know if I initially thought of myself as a storyteller. I'm extremely analytical, and I think about things really deeply. And so I use a lot of analogies and metaphors when I talk to people and getting points across. And I think probably later in my career when I was leading people, and it just seemed so natural to talk with people, guide people, coach people, mentor people by sharing my own experiences. I've never been afraid or ashamed to talk with people about things that I should do differently, should have done differently, and pitfalls I didn't want them to experience. So I think it came from that. So I'm not sure if there was ever a real point in time where I'm like, okay, let's do storytelling. It has just been very natural. And then I learned that, okay, when you're talking to people and you're sharing things, it seems to connect with people when you're telling it in a way that relates to them. And storytelling has just been, it's so natural. No matter what I do, no matter what the situation is, when I'm talking to people, inevitably, a story is going to be told. And so it really just has been something, I'm guessing and thinking that it originated with me leading people and connecting and guiding them. I've always loved reading. I've always loved writing. But I think that probably it really demonstrated itself more so through leading people.
Has there ever been a time when you were, you told a story, or you had a story in your head that was just difficult, that you had to tell, and you told that story, and it just didn't, because we think of storytelling, I think people think it's always a feel good, ooh, it feels good, it's a story, you're telling a story, but did it ever didn't land right, or the messaging in the story wasn't a pleasant one or positive one?
I would say I've had experiences. So oftentimes when we've had experiences in life where we somehow feel embarrassed or ashamed, we don't want to share those stories. But I have found myself, and I will tell you, this just happened a few weeks ago. I was having lunch with someone, and the person was sharing something very personal. And I'm normally a private person, but it just I felt led to share my experience. And it involved, something that I don't talk about a lot. But I wanted to convey to her that we're human. We make mistakes. Life isn't perfect, but we bounce back. And I wanted to use my own personal story. I didn't want to point and, try to say, look at so-and-so. I can talk about me, really well. I know what it felt like for me, and I can make it very personal. And so sharing that story with her, I think because sometimes people look at you and they feel like, you have no issues, no problems, no anything. And hearing my story and listening to it and just seeing her body language and how she looked at me kind of differently, like, oh, so there have been flaws. Yes, girl, there have been tons of flaws and still are, but we make it. And so it's not something that I don't wear it, as a chip on my shoulder. I've always made a promise and commitment to myself that no matter what happened in life, I was not going to be a negative person. And so it was just, sometimes it feels good to share kind of that gutter, ugly stuff so that people can understand that there is a way to come back from it.
So what I'm hearing you say is that the storytelling, not only do you use it in a workspace, you use it when someone is coming to you and you use it to console or share or connect, to empathize with someone. You use your storytelling to do that. And it sort of takes away the finger pointing or the shame. It really personalizes it. And like, okay, this is a good opportunity for me to share my story. Good, I love that.
Yes.
So in the business space, because you do again, DE&I work, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging work.
Yes.
So if you hear me say DE&IB, that's what I'm saying, and you'll hear that acronym. But when you're doing that type of work, when do you know to share a story? Because we're talking, just the diversity part of this, of that whole thing is a lot. When do you know to share, Jackie's personal story as a Black woman, blah, 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 whatever you want to add to that? When do you know when it's a good time to do that?
Reading the room is important, but I have found that when I tell my personal journey, when I talk about why I do this work, why I am so passionate about this work, why I love this work, and the importance of this work, I can point to data, I can point to statistics, I can talk about everybody else. But when I say, okay, now I've connected with you, now let me tell you something that happened to me personally, it feels different. You even see it in the room. You see people say, okay, here's an aha moment. Because again, I do believe that people connect to the personal story. So I really try hard when I'm doing trainings. I set ground rules. Okay, we're not finger pointing.
Right.
We're not, this is not a us versus them kind of thing. This is, let's look at how we can come together. This is a respect issue. This is an equity issue. Let's talk about moving forward. But in moving forward, you have to understand what someone's story is. And I shared a story about someone who had made a comment about an outfit that I was wearing, and they connected it to Africa, just out the clear blue sky.
Did you have like a Pentecost thing going on?
It wasn't. It was just a colorful top.
Leopard?
No.
With a giraffe or
nothing.
Nothing.
It was a colorful, brightly colored top. And the person came in and it started with a compliment. And then I really think they lost themselves, like totally lost themselves. And they started going down a road that a lot was said that I am sure that person is still very embarrassed about, as they should be, because it was really, really kind of a great example of a microaggression. And so as I kind of sat there like, what just happened? I had an opportunity to connect with the person again and talk through that experience with them. But I've shared it in trainings and never named the person, never did any of that, but just talked about how that experience happened and how then I was able to go back and talk to people or to the person so that we could have a learning experience from it. But sharing stories and talking about myself, I don't have an issue with that when I know that the benefit is going to be positive for the people that I'm talking to. I don't use myself as like, okay, look at me, I'm this perfect example. But I do like to talk about if it's the right setting and people have questions or they want clarification, then I'm okay with talking about, various stories, not just my own, but utilizing that as a way to connect with the audience.
I think sharing personal stories is people getting to know you,
Yes.
you being authentic. I know we're saying this whole be authentic, keep it at 100, whatever. But I think when you open up yourself and your soul and you share things, because we typically share the good stuff, but we never share when we stumble and when we fall or when we're things that we're not so proud of. But it sounds like to me, your stories, when you're telling stories, it's more in a space of a teaching,
Yes.
like more of a teaching space when the opportunity, arises. So as you go through life, how do you store your stories? Like, is it like a little file? And how do you because if someone's listening to this and they're saying, okay, I don't know how to get my stories, like, how do you look at your life through the lens of a story? And I'm going to say like little episodes. How do you do that and train yourself because I think that there's people that are naturally gifted at storytelling, but it's also an art, and you can learn to be a storyteller. And of course, there's ways you can do that. But how do you get a person to even just open up, to even see themselves as storytellers and look at their lives as an author telling a story?
That is an excellent question. It really is. And as you were talking and I was trying to think through that and what that looks like, for me, it is very natural. It is just very natural. But I also think everybody has a story. I am a firm believer that everybody has a story and we can learn from each other. So perhaps if someone were to look at either something in their lives that was like a pivotal, a turning point, something that where they themselves learned something, somebody else can learn from that too. I think sometimes we are afraid to be vulnerable, but part of storytelling is vulnerability.
Yes, it is.
And so, because like you mentioned earlier, you don't know how it's going to be received, but I think when you have a genuine heart, it is received. People pick up on that and it's received in that manner. So I would say when we look at our lives and we say, okay, I made this mistake, or I bounced back from this really harsh situation, or I was really successful by doing these things. How can I uplift other people? How can I share that information? I think you do a wonderful job of that with your own life, with, hey, I made this transition going into consulting. And you are definitely someone who reaches back and helps others.
Thank you.
And so I feel the same way about other people. Even if I were to just, kind of think of an example, a mom who has, how do I balance career and family life? That's a story.
Yes, it is.
And even if the story is, it is challenging, it is difficult, I find myself crying in the closet sometimes because people need to hear the truth. And so I follow someone on Instagram. And I met this woman randomly at a mental health suicide community event. And so I follow this woman, and she has been sharing some of her painful experiences about losing her husband. And so I'm sure that she's never kind of sat down and said, okay, let me tell my story. But I think in her kind of grieving and just kind of trying to find an outlet, she is helping so many people and she may not realize it. And that's what I think about others. I think if we just kind of let our guards down sometimes, and I'm not saying tell everything and all things, because you do have to use wisdom.
Yes, I agree.
But there are times when you're talking to people and you hear them saying your story, like, I gotta live that.
Yeah, right.
And they may be in a place of, ambivalence or uncertainty. I always think those are great moments to say, know what? Let me connect with you. Let me tell you about me. And I think when people, because we look at folks and we see the pretty perfection or the strong man, but my goodness, what if I'm sitting across from someone who has been through 10 times a situation worse than anything I'm going through, and what I see is the picture of strength, but they were able to tell me how they bounced back, how they went and got counseling or whatever whatever they did to get to the place where they are now. How powerful is that? That is amazing. Yes. And I would need to hear that, because then I would know there's hope for me. But as long as we kind of keep that boxed in, don't let anybody see the ugly pieces. No, it's okay. It's okay, because people do need to know that we're human. People do need to know. And I really feel this deeply in the depths of my soul, especially when we talk about young girls, because we're often in front of young girls and we don't know who's watching. Young girls, teenagers, young women. And they look at us and they see success and all of these things, but they don't see the struggle. They didn't know what happened when we were really fighting for those jobs behind the scenes, or when we were, cut down and didn't get the job, or when people that we thought were our support systems were not supporting us. Those are stories we have to tell them so that we can encourage them, we can build them up and let them know, hey, these things may happen, but guess what? You are strong. You can make it. You can do it. If I did it, you can do it. And that, I think, is the part of storytelling that we're missing, because you're right. When people want to hear about the princess and all of that, and no. There are so many facets to telling our stories. Right. Yes.
You know what's interesting? You said so many things that I want to go back to. The one where you're speaking with someone and you know that you have a story, that the story they're sharing sounds a lot like yours, and you want to share that, but something holds us back. Either sometimes it's, I don't want to be vulnerable, or they're not going to listen, or they're going to look at me differently. And I think when we start thinking about how others view us, we're giving them the power when we have to keep our power. So it doesn't really matter what they think or say, but if we allow it to happen and give them, our power, then I think that's can be a hurdle for others. So you can still maintain your power and still share.
Yes.
That you give that away. So don't let the fact that they're going to see you differently and any of that get in the way. So I like how you said, because I think we all feel that, like, this resonates, I can share a story. But also, I don't know if you may not realize this or not. When you talked about your stories, telling your stories to young women, to our young girls, you lit up. And that's when like when people tell me like my purpose, what I love, all you need to do is spend time with people. They will tell you what's in their heart, and that clearly is in your heart because you lit up. You lit up the room. You leaned in. I mean, it was all over you. Your love for young women, young girls. So what was it? What was a crystal clear moment for you? That made you say, that's an area I want to lean into. This is my call.
I would say that, so I was an introvert growing up. I still am. People laugh at me. Some of my friends say, you absolutely are not, but I am.
You were trained extrovert. That's what it is. You've been trained to use extrovert skills.
Yeah, I say that I am an introvert with extrovert tendencies. So I see myself often in young girls. I think that's part of it. And so there has just always been this natural connection. I would say probably, again, going back to, so in church, young kids were always drawn to me. So I taught vacation Bible school for our little kindergartners, and the little kids were always drawn to me. But I also I remember when I wrote this poem, and this was back in, I believe, 2015. It's called Pretty Little Black Girl. And during that time frame, there were so many images about what beauty was. And there was a lot of this social media presence. And I think, even images in all forms of media, different platforms of media, where being a Black girl was not considered beautiful. And it angered me, to be honest with you. And I sat down, and when I start writing, I can sit for hours and hours and write.
It's amazing.
And so I would say my crystal clear moment really was like, I didn't like what I was seeing, and so I wanted to do something about it. And so I wrote this poem, Pretty Little Black Girl, and I remember reading it at one of our church events, and literally one of the little girls at church, it spoke to her so clearly. She stopped what she was doing and she just watched me.
Oh, wow.
And it was almost like she felt that was for her. And I mean, she was young, maybe 5, 6 at the time.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Wow.
And after that, she kind of became connected to me. I don't have children. My mom has, and I always wanted kids. I'll be completely transparent about that. My mother would always say to me, God blesses you with children in different ways. And so through mentoring and coaching and volunteering, I just started connecting with young girls and even the women at work, and I would see things in them, and maybe where they lacked confidence, I would just like pour into them. And it wasn't like I was going to them saying, okay, I'm pouring into you today.
Right, yeah. It doesn't happen like that.
But it was just like this natural connection. And so it just really it's been organic. It's a blessing. I will say that I do believe that it has been a blessing, but I see things, I want things to be different for people, and I try really hard to be a positive influence and make a difference. And so when I see a young girl, and especially if I see that there's confidence issues,
I know,
or even young women, I try so much to go to them and to be very, to connect in some kind of way, to start conversation, especially introverts. I definitely, because sometimes we kind of have all of these misconceptions about who an introvert is or what they are and all of that. And so really trying to pour into that. But really, I think it just started with, I didn't like what was being portrayed about who we were as Black people, Black women, Black girls. And I wrote a poem about it. And even before then, I was kind of the teacher of little kids. But then it became more intentional that I wanted to work with them. I wanted to inspire. I wanted to have this positive influence. And so when I am even in the workplace, I have made it a point to kind of watch out for and try and support as much as I can women. For sure.
That's, what I love about what you're sharing is that you were aware enough when you recited that poem that it impacted a person. And I think sometimes we're not aware of our impact because we can get mesmerized with numbers and size. It was a little 5-year-old girl that you saw that you knew, okay, this is meaningful. This could be life-changing. My writing resonated with her. It could be thousands of young girls who it could. So I'm glad that you were awakened enough in the room to see that little girl stop and pay attention, to what you had to say, because she could have heard words that she'd never heard before. Now, okay, this is on the spot, and it's cool if you don't remember it, but can you say any of the verses in the poem and that Just look at that face. I know it. I know. I feel so bad.
I don't
memorize. No, but just
I
anything.
do not memorize.
But just summarize like what
Pretty
because
Little Black Girl really is letting. It's like a conversation between a young Black girl and a Black woman.
Oh, that's
Yes.
powerful.
And so it is the Black woman saying, "Pretty Little Black Girl, one day you're going to be on the scene. You're going to be on the world stage. Like all of these great things are going to happen for you. You pretty little Black girl." And just Pretty Little Black keeps and the poem just keeps saying, "You're a pretty little Black girl," and then it says all these positive things, and then the little girl says to her, basically, like, "Black Queen, how did you do this?" And the woman replies back to her, "I kept God first. I kept, it's positive, got my education." So my writing is always, for the most part, very inspirational. I try to do inspirational writings. But Pretty Little Black Girl was really about just letting her know, you're a pretty little Black girl. And like all of these great things are going to happen. Keep on track, pretty little Black girl. And then the little Black girl saying, "Well, how did you do it?" And she's responding. And so, one day you're going to be on the world stage. And so, that was it's just kind of a summary of it.
That's beautiful. Thank you for that. Like I said, I didn't want to put you on the spot, but I'm glad you shared it because as you were saying that, it just sort of reminds me of my crystal clear moment when someone said that to me. And I was probably about, I would say 8 or 9. And it was very similar. She saw me. Like she saw me and she spoke words over me that were really very, very powerful. And it was very similar to Pretty Little Black Girl, that sort of older woman scene. So that's a reminder to all of us. We need to be on the lookout for our little girls, and when inspired to tell our story or encourage them to do so, because I remember my Pretty Little Black Girl moment very clearly. I remember her name and everything. Girl, Miss Cora. Miss Cora, thank you so much, Miss Cora. Yes, Miss Cora, she did. She said I was gonna be fantastic and all kind of stuff. But yeah, that was my moment. But so as I think we all have a responsibility, and males too. You could say handsome young man. We can do that. So as we kind of gonna go a little bit toward, we're in this space of inspirational writing. You have a book that came out that is wonderful.
Thank you.
Title was this is title, "Kissed by God." If you don't want to be kissed by nobody else, right? You don't want to be people. If you don't want to be kissed by nobody else, I think you want to be kissed by God,
Absolutely.
right? So I love that title. It's just beautiful. Like, who's gonna say no to being kissed by God? Because that kissing is almost like approval. Like, I approve of you and, I see you, I acknowledge you. So let's see the book, because I think you need, so as you're showing it, I remember you telling me that you were super particular about the graphics in the book. And you a couple times was like, that's not what I want. That's not what I want. And I really dug that about you. Like, you were very specific. And I put that back in my file when I get to a space while I'm writing to be that tenacious about the particulars. You were her lashes weren't right. Her nose, like you really were very detailed. So tell us, tell the podcast listeners, because the holidays are coming up and we all know kids. We all know, and you know what? This is a book for all children. This isn't, a black book. This isn't a book. It's a book for kids. And you're going to tell us about it. So please don't look at it that way. Look at it just as a precious gift to give to the child. So tell us about Kissed by God.
I'm also going to say it's a book for adults too, because there is a moral to the story. So Kissed by God, thank you so much, first of all, for telling me about the title, your perceptions about the title, because someone really tried to influence me to change the name. And I was like, no, God gave me Kissed by God. Like, that has been buried in my spirit. I can't change it. And I remember the person saying, well, when people Google, that's just not going to come up because of what the book is about. And I said, nope. And they wanted me to put a tagline. Nope, I'm not going to do it. This book is Kissed by God. I had a vision. I could see it in my mind what this was supposed to look like. I wanted this little girl to look like a Black little girl. I didn't want there to be any confusion. I wanted her mom to be cute and hip and look like you and all of that. I wanted dad to have a fade and a goatee. I wanted all of those things because I wanted the book to be relatable. But Kissed by God is about this beautiful girl, Jillian. And Jillian is so excited about her big track meet at the school. And she's in this loving family. And Jillian has a birthmark. It is a very noticeable birthmark. And I don't know if you can really see it on the book, but she has a very noticeable birthmark on her leg. But her family has never made her feel different. This has always been like you've been kissed by God, and that's why you have this mark. It's a special postmark. It's God's way of demonstrating that you're beautiful, you're different, and it's okay to be different and unique. And so, as with most things at home where we are validated, we may go out into the world, and the very thing that we've been validated about is the very thing that people question us about or tease us about or say that we don't fit in. And that's what happens to her. So she goes to her track meet, and the moment she has her little outfit on, uniform on, and the kids see the mark on her leg, then, there's all this teasing, and she's filled with self-doubt. And so there is this beautiful space in the book where she has this dialogue with her mother, and her mother explains what that birthmark really is about and how God made her to be special and unique. And I think that's where I want everyone to look at that. Regardless of where you are in faith, you're special and unique. And we were not meant to be identical. So it's okay to be different. And so, of course, she's inspired. The rest is all history. But this book is really about embracing our differences. Being unique, being different, it's beautiful. It is a gift. And so when I have a birthmark on my leg, this book is not about me, but I took something that was personal to me and included in the book. But I think once I got to the point where I was like, this is who I am, it's never changing, the power that you feel in embracing who you are.
Fully.
Fully,
yes. Inside and out, all of it.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And so that's the thing I want people to take away from the book is, and especially children, because children can experience some very mean and cruel circumstances that can really alter the trajectory of their lives. Teasing can be really harsh. And so, no matter what's going on as a child with you, whatever your differences are, whatever people think may be funny or make you awkward or whatever, embrace
that's your superpower.
That is your superpower for real. And one of the other things that I would say is the reason I also say this is not just a children's book. I had a lot of adults reach out to me about this book, and even some of the comments on Amazon about the book that they too had, visible differences, whether it was a birthmark or something else, and that they wished that they had had a book that affirmed who they were at that time. And someone shared something very personal about, and it was a gentleman, about growing up with a mark on his leg and how he was teased. And so he purchased the book, and I had a chance to talk with him recently. I met him in person recently, and it just let me know that it was the right thing, the right time, all of that. It was just meant to be.
It's really a beautiful book, and the pictures are beautiful, the words, and I love the fact that, like you said, it's for children, of course, but as a parent reading it to a child, it can reinforce, but also can reinforce how important it is to affirm our kids in all spaces and not even think of differences as different. And that's why I'm so passionate about the work that we do in diversity, DE&I, diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, D&IB work, because that's a big part of it, acceptance. just acceptance. I might even understand it. I don't understand how the birthmark got there. I may ask questions like, wow, that looks like it could be a picture of something, accepting it instead of right away resisting because it's different, poke fun, fear. Not only does it happen to a birthmark, it happens to people, just different races, different sexual orientations. So this story could be told for just difference. Anything that's not the norm, it could show up. When you said that, I have a birthmark on my leg too. It's a perfect circle, and I always said when I was a kid it was a hamburger. I love hamburgers though. I do like hamburgers. Maybe that's what it is. But I always said my hamburger. But yeah. But I think growing up, we all have those little things that made us different, and I'm hoping we're leaning into space in this world that difference is becoming the good thing. But if we continue to squash learning about D and IB, it's going to make it very difficult because that's really what it's about: acceptance, understanding, having some empathy, at all ages. So as we go toward the end here, as I was thinking, I know you have a story inside of you. Do you have a story inside of you now that was inspired by a crystal clear moment? And if you're comfortable sharing, you can.
Absolutely. I have lots of stories in this head of mine, and just trying to find the proper way to get them out. The story that I want to tell most is a story about my father's passing. And that was the book that I always thought would be written first. And it has not, for whatever reason, you get stuck, get writer's block and all of that. But that is definitely the story that I want to write. But I also, a crystal clear moment that I want to write about. And I keep a book in my purse actually, where I take all these, when I have these thoughts about, that would be a great title for a book, is I really want to write about women, and I say women because I can speak about women certainly more so than men, but we have all of these perceptions about introverts and who they are, and often mislabeled. And we use that, resting, what face and all of that with people. And I really want to bring a little life and a little story about who we really are. And so my crystal clear moment in terms of why that is I know that I personally have been, people have had the wrong perception about who I am. I've actually had people say, oh, you're Jackie Johnson. I'm like, what does that even mean?
What is that? What is that about?
And then say
with
to
the
you,
voice, like the voice raise and the tone.
And then say to me, oh my God, I didn't know
I know you're gonna say.
Oh, you're like super nice. You're this, all of these things, and it's like. So people have walked away with perceptions because I'm analytical, I'm observant, I'm a little bit more reserved. Now, when I get to know you, I am hilarious, funny, and all those great things. But in the beginning, I may not be. I have to push myself to walk into a room and be this social butterfly. That's just not my nature. But I do want to shed light on that because I think, especially as women and Black women in particular, we can hurt each other with those perceptions. We can miss opportunities. We can miss. What if you had that thought about me, or if I had a certain thought about you? We would not have this moment right now, or the moments that we've had leading up to this that have just been a blessing. And so that is something that for sure,
I think that's good.
Because I want to find ways to bridge gaps and build people up and inspire. And I don't want to use this gift that I truly believe that God gave me for anything other than that.
I mean, again, everything falls under that DE and IB space. I mean, introvert, extrovert, you're a feeler, you're a judge, or whatever. All of that is just we're all diverse by nature.
Yes.
And the fact that we don't want to teach people about it, we're kind of still stuck on color and maybe gender, and sexual orientation freaks people out. But we don't realize just what you and I talking about, an introvert, extrovert, and sharing how that person shows up so that you're not misunderstood.
Yes.
And
absolutely.
people know how to, address you and get a better understanding of you. All of that falls into, to me, I consider the 21st century piece of the DE&IB. And I don't think we're there yet. And the fact that so many people want to shut it down, like, come on, So thank you for sharing that's your crystal clear moment. But it's also your story, because you shared the story of being, which I'm kind of like, well, I can see the introvert in you, because I have a sister who's an introvert, and people think she's not, but I'm like, nah, she really is. Of course, I'm an extrovert, always have been. So I've been around true introverts, and I know it's a switch you turn on. I have a son who's an introvert, and I know that people drain you. You can't help it. You need to take a break and refuel and then jump back in. And someone could read that incredibly different. Like, maybe bothered, you're standoffish, and it's not, no, I need to refuel because you're taking all my energy and I got so much in my tank.
I also look at it as I'm happy with me as a person.
Love it.
So spending time with me is not hard to do at all.
It's not for an introvert.
It's
No,
not hard.
You guys are like, when y'all leaving?
So
Yes.
so I can be at home
Yes.
and no TV, no nothing, and I can just be kind of like, notes or whatever. Even if I have TV on for, it's just kind of noise in the background. I'm good with that. But I'm also good with having great fun and food and times with family and friends. And I love my little god kids, my great niece and nephews. Shout out to Jeremiah, Jayden, and Melanie.
See, I told you, I knew it. I said we will not be able to wrap up. I know that, and I love that.
Yes,
those are your babies.
Yes, babies. But yeah, I think that, I was sharing with someone last night, part of the beauty of getting older is not only the wisdom and the acceptance that comes with, just who you are. There's a peace that just comes with being older. And I believe that, things that in the past probably worried me so much, or, is this ever going to happen in life or not, or whatever, I have greater faith in God. And so I'm not going to say that I'm not a worrier. I don't want to mislead people. But for sure, there is this, I can't even describe it at times. There is this peace. And where I'm like, Lord, if this is what it is, this is what it is.
It's nice, huh?
And it's a different feeling. And so with that, I think there have been more blessings that have come my way. When I just take my hands off of things and let Him guide my way. Again, I'm not perfect and I don't get it right all the time. But God has put some wonderful people in my life, and He has given me the opportunity to do some things. And as you mentioned, DEI is so passionate. It's a passionate place for me. I look at it as, again, some of this stuff is purpose and calling on my life. I really do feel that there are some things that are calling on my life.
I agree with that, yeah.
And so the inclusion part of DEI is super important to me.
Super important.
And having that background in social work and social services, and having been a case manager, and I've seen some really harsh situations, but it also, it's the foundation it gave me. And so what I tell people is, I still have that social worker's heart. I still am that person that's looking to help, looking to guide, looking to provide, looking to connect you with resources. That never went away. The job changed. The titles changed. I got another degree and a certificate after that. But the heart of the social worker, the pureness of wanting to help people, that person is still here and just lives in me. And so that stuff makes me smile.
Jackie, thank you so much for accepting this offer to be on my podcast, Crystal Clear Moments. All right, everyone, Kissed by God, Amazon. Where can they find you?
Where can they find me? I do not. Okay, so here's the embarrassing moment. I am not a big social media user.
That's all right.
So.
Not all of us are. But they can get your book
You can get
on
my
Amazon.
book on Amazon.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right, definitely.
Yes.
It's super easy to
Yes.
Kissed by God, Jackie Johnson, all that's
Yes.
pretty easy stuff, but
Yes.
a great, great gift to give to a child, a parent, a teacher, a school district
Yes.
can invest and really just be great. We've got some milestone dates ahead of us. We have holiday shopping for all the different types of religions and spiritual partners that we have, and then we're coming upon beginning of next year. We have the MLK. So this book really fits into a couple of big milestone events, holidays that we're coming up here again. So purchase. And again, thank you everyone for tuning in at Crystal Clear Moments. I appreciate you and talk to you soon. Bye-bye.